UFC 309, legacies on the line. Saturday night, it's a big fight in the Big Apple with two big, bad champions. A moment in our sports history that will be witnessed by millions. In a night where stars will collide in what could perhaps be for both men the final time. The sport's youngest ever champ, the man who had the world at his fingertips and he watched it all burn, versus the man who runs into fires in his free time and has beaten the odds at every turn. The firefighter will meet the inferno. In the middle, they'll go blow for blow. Two pillars of the sport in a battle of inherently good versus bad, to the bone. Only one man can sit upon the throne. The greatest heavyweight of all time versus the greatest, period. Stipe, who has knocked out the sport's most powerful punchers. Stipe, who knows how deep you gotta dig to beat a double champ. Stipe, who broke down the scariest fighter the sport has ever seen. Now he takes on the man who has beaten every single opponent he's ever faced. Jon Jones, who's defeated 3 generations of the sport. The deadliest man in the game with the most dangerous mind for the sport, who's just straight mean. The unbreakable spirit meets the unbeatable force. Saturday night, heavyweight history will take its course. They've shared the spotlight, shared rivals, and now for perhaps the final time in their illustrious careers, will share the octagon. Undisputed, unbeatable, undeniable, the favorite in every fight across 2 weight classes, versus the perennial underdog, Clark Kent, before he takes off his glasses. When the clock strikes 12 and we're at the top of the bill, for 25 minutes or less, the world will stand still. And before the joy or agony, there will only be thrill. Going to war in the world's most famous arena, Madison Square Garden, UFC 309, Jones Miocic. The world is watching.
And kicking the card off, we got Veronica Hardy taking on Eduarda Moura. And striker versus grappler matchup here. Eduarda Moura, she had a lot of hype going into her last fight. She was undefeated, 10-0. She trains at the same gym as Jailton Almeida, and she was looking kind of Jailton Almeida-ish, where she was able to go out there, get quite a few submission wins in those 10 victories. She got a submission in her UFC debut, even though she was fighting a way undersized opponent and she missed weight, and it was kind of a squash match. Her second fight, Diniz Gomes. Gomes is obviously a pretty solid fighter. We just saw her take out Karolina Kowalkiewicz, and Moura lost a split decision, but I feel like Gomes clearly won. It was one of those fights where Moura did have a decent amount of control time, but really never got much done with it, and she got tired and ended up losing some scrambles on the ground on top of losing most of the striking exchanges. So I definitely felt as if Gomes deserved that split decision win there, but Moura, she missed weight for her first fight in the UFC, like I said, and then she missed weight for the Diniz Gomes fight also. So she's moving up to 125 for this fight, and she's still going to be big because Veronica Hardy, she's someone that used to fight at 115 and moved up to kind of fight at her natural weight, whereas I think Moura probably still is going to cut a decent amount of weight for 125, and I'm sure she was pulling a lot of weight for 115. So we'll see if the lack of a weight cut for Moura makes her a little bit more effective. But really right now with Moura, what we got out of her is a big fighter that wants to try to get the body lock and get to your back and kind of either get that rear naked choke early or try to backpack you for 2 rounds and then maybe survive the third when she's tired, or have some lulls in the striking where she can make it real low paced and kind of survive in that manner. But on the feet, Moura is really slow. Like I said, maybe with the weight cut not being there, she'll be a little faster. Maybe 125, she'll be a little bit faster. But Veronica Hardy should be significantly speedier as a fighter. I think she's going to be quicker, faster. She's going to have better footwork, faster hand speed, and kick speed. So I think there's going to be a big advantage there for Veronica Hardy. But, Moura, if she can get that early back take, she's going to have a chance to get the rear naked choke. If she can maintain her cardio a little bit better and time some takedowns in the second and third rounds and be able to actually maintain the position unlike she did with Gomes, maybe that could be another path to victory due to not pulling so much weight off. But Veronica Hardy has looked good since she's came back. I feel like she's decent. She's underrated. She just got a victory as a slight underdog against JJ Aldridge, and she's on a 3-fight winning streak. So she has the momentum, and I feel like when she first entered the UFC, she was young. She was 21. She was bouncing around gyms. She was moving from country to country, and I don't think she had really a great backing behind her. And since she, got with Dan Hardy, and I think her personal life got more in order, she got more of a stable environment. It's shown that her talent has kind of proven itself to be where it's at, and I think it's pretty solid. And I just feel on the feet, she needs to be moving a lot, lateral footwork, cutting angles, using that speed, quickness, exploding in at the right moments, maybe holstering a lot of the kicks, especially early. I do think Moura has some issues with kicks, so I don't think just taking those away completely is what you want to do, but maybe early on when Moura's at her freshest, don't spam kicks and try to just be economical and smart, but moving, cutting angles, using her fast hand speed, her ability to get in and out is what's going to help her here. And I think that Veronica is actually an underrated grappler. She's strong in the clinch. I think her takedown defense is pretty solid overall. And even when she gets put on her back, like you watched her fight with Jillian Robertson, for instance, if you go back and see that one, there was a lot of scrambles that Veronica Hardy was able to create. She was able to reverse, get on top of Jillian multiple times. And that's a very solid grappler that's now moved up to 125 as well. Or down to 115, but was previously at 125, so is a pretty big opponent. And I think that Veronica Hardy will be able to create some scrambles if she does get taken down against some more tired Moura and maybe end up on top. And I don't see as much of a threat for Moura off bottom, and I don't think Moura is going to be able to create as many big scrambles and things like that. If Hardy can reverse and get on top of her, I could see her kind of just allowing Hardy to ride out the round with the top control. But Hardy just has to be careful, if she engages in that grappling, not to get silly, stupid, complacent, caught with the submission. And if she doesn't do that, though, I think she'll win. And I'm going to go with Veronica Hardy via decision. And I'm actually a fan of this matchup. Second fight of the night, Oban Elliott taking on Basil Hafez. We have two wrestlers who aren't afraid to go out there and throw down, so I think it's going to be interesting. Elliott, he proved to everyone, even though he's from Europe, his wrestling is good. Those Welsh wrestlers, they've been able to do well in the UFC. And prior to his last fight, we'd seen Elliott, show takedowns, but he was fighting kind of non-wrestlers for the most part, and it was hard to know if he was going to be able to step up and beat an opponent like Preston Parsons, who's a strong wrestler. And we saw Elliott show pretty slick takedown defense, and obviously he's going to need that in this fight. Basil Hafez, he's a grinder. His debut with Jack Della Maddalena, he had a lot of takedowns, had a good showing there, but his last fight, for whatever reason, he didn't try to go for many takedowns against Mickey Gall, who's a guy that's been taken down and held down before, even submitted in the UFC, if I remember correctly. So, Gall's jiu-jitsu is decent, but I was a little surprised to see Hafez not be confident enough to look for takedowns early and often in that one. And it was a competitive fight. I guess Hafez gained some striking experience. Maybe he felt a little comfortable on the feet there, but definitely probably took more damage than he had to, and he just didn't show his best asset there. But Hafez, on the feet, he goes forward and he has some pop. He'll land some overhands. He'll walk guys down and feint that level change and kind of try to goad offense out of them and then come over the top with big punches or time the level change. And he's durable. We saw that in his fight with Jack Della and Mickey Gall. Took a lot of punishment, especially to the body, man. The guy's really tough, but limited stand-up. Short arms, doesn't really kick, not good off the back foot, very hittable. And his wrestling is his bread and butter. I mean, the guy has pretty fast level changes. He can take guys down when he's being pressured, and he shoots a lot of takedowns when you pressure him. I mean, really all he's going to be doing is looking to level change under your punches. So you could take advantage of that, maybe come up with knees, uppercuts when you're pressuring. But if you can get in on the legs, Hafez, he's pretty good at getting the finish. And his ability to hold guys down hasn't really been proven at this higher level in the UFC. He hasn't really been able to control position the greatest. And he slows down because he shoots a lot of takedowns, and it's just a taxing style. And you see that where in fights that have gone to decision, he's only 4-4-1. And plus he's been to split decision 4 times. So it's like, if it goes to decision, he's probably going to fatigue, and it's going to be close against most guys. He's going to start quick and then end up kind of teetering. But Elliott, this guy I think is going to be slicker on the feet. He has good footwork. He moves around well. He's evasive. I think the big cage will be advantageous for Elliott because he should have the faster movement. He needs to be at least early trying to get Hafez to chase him and get some of that energy out. Work calf kicks, long punches, check hooks. And once Hafez is a little bit more fatigued, then you can get in the pocket and kind of try to stick and move, be a little bit more aggressive. And Elliott has a good chin too. I mean, we've seen him hurt, but he's able to survive and come back, and also a very tough guy. And he has to not be afraid to wrestle in this fight. I think that he could get some takedowns potentially, and just even if he can't hold Hafez down or can't finish many takedowns, making Hafez work I think will be smart. And I feel like Hafez is not going to be able to hold down Elliott even if he does get takedowns, and I think it's going to be difficult for him to even get it to the ground. So I expect Elliott to be too much for Hafez here. Hafez, he could have some early success, but I think that Elliott's going to find the range, be better on the feet, and I just expect him to be the busier fighter. I think he's going to push a little harder if he has to, and I think he's going to shut down the wrestling. So I'm going to say Elliott wins via decision. If you look at it, Elliott is 6-0 in decisions, whereas, like you said, Hafez 4-4-1. So I kind of feel like Hafez is knockout or bust, and he doesn't have very many knockout wins. I don't see a submission being very likely. So even though I think the line's a little bit juiced, I like Elliott in this fight. And for this next one, I mean, we got 2 guys that really need a win bad. I mean, both haven't won in over 2.5 years. Gall, he's had a really unique UFC career, to say it nicely. I mean, how he got in the promotion, some of his early opponents, he was able to get some wins, but he hasn't been able to get results against the higher tier competition. 7-6, 3-fight losing skid for Gall. For Brahimaj, 10-5, 2-2 in the UFC. Came back after a long layoff and got dominated in May against Themba Gorimbo. And all of his wins except for one, which was a second-round submission, have been first-round submissions. Kind of yet to prove he can fight when it goes past, 7.5 minutes. And Gall, he's shown more flashes in the UFC, but both guys have to win this matchup to preserve their job. And both of them are grapplers. On the feet, I would kind of say Gall is the edge. Even though neither are great strikers, Gall is a little longer. I think he's shown some more power. He'll throw some decent straight punches out there. He has elbows on the inside. I feel like he was moving a little bit better footwork-wise in his last fight. I think movement can be key in this fight for Gall if he uses it. And Gall has a really good chin. I think he's the more durable fighter. Ramiz, his hands aren't terrible, but he doesn't let his hands go much, very low volume. I don't think he likes getting hit or kind of getting in the fire. And really, Brahimaj, if he can't pressure you to the fence early and get that body lock or double, he usually doesn't have much success. I think if this fight stays standing for long periods of time, McGhee will prove to be the better striker. And McGhee has had some issues letting guys take him down and lay on him, but he's a decent grappler, and he's able to kind of stay safe. He did get dominated in a couple of his fights, Diego, where I think he had some issues going into that fight, but Mike Perry even was able to out-wrestle him and kind of control him. But he stuffed some takedowns versus Hafez, and he got back up off his back. So he hasn't been fighting too much frequently. He's been at Kill Cliff. Potentially, he's worked a little bit on that aspect, and it did look a little bit improved in that fight with Hafez. And Brahimaj's wrestling is not that good. I mean, if he can't just kind of use his strength to drag you down off the cage or find the back from standing in a weird scramble, it's not going to be him, shooting real nice takedowns and getting you down. He's submitted every fighter he's been able to take down early, so clearly he's a beast when he can get position on you when he's fresh, and nice back takes. He has a good front headlock position. You'll wrap the neck from the back too and get the rear naked chokes. But I think Mickey should win this fight. I mean, I'm going to go with Mickey. He's bigger. He's more well-rounded. I feel like he did show some improvements in the takedown defense versus Hafez, and if he can avoid getting taken down and subbed early, he should be able to kind of stick and move in the stand-up and get the win. And I think he has more cardio, more heart. If this fight hits the later rounds, I feel like Gall will take over. Brahimaj, he got dropped by Court McGhee on the feet, and I just don't think his striking is good. He's never been knocked out, but he had that one TKO loss to Max Griffin with the ear injury. But he's 0-4 in decisions. Gall is 1-4 in decisions, so it's like I kind of want to pick Gall inside the distance, but I kind of see it going 15 minutes, and I'm going to say Mickey Gall gets the victory via decision. And this next fight, short notice matchup, Tybura coming in here with relatively short time to prepare, taking on Diniz, who he was supposed to fight Derek Lewis a couple weeks ago. If you remember, they weighed in and everything, and then Derek Lewis pulled out on the day of the fight. So Diniz, he's getting rebooked pretty quick, and he had, a training camp for Derek Lewis, and he's been able to probably be in a little bit better shape than Tybura, who's coming in here on like 10 days notice. But Tybura, super vet in the UFC, experienced, he's seen everything, and he's fighting someone with not very many fights, so I think he's confident he can come in here and do his thing. But we're going to see if Diniz could surprise him here. And Diniz is the slight underdog, but I'm actually going to go with Diniz in this fight. I think Tybura, there's obviously a clear path to victory for him. If he could time a double leg, if he can get Diniz against the cage and then get him down to the ground with a body lock, which he's definitely capable of doing. We've seen Janata, on his back against Austin Lane. Towards the end of that round, he was getting mounted and just didn't really show much on his back. So I feel like Tybura is someone that's very skilled as a grappler for heavyweight. If he gets on top, he's going to have more of a opportunity to maybe get that quick finish early. But I just don't know what kind of shape Tybura is in. If Diniz can stuff a couple takedowns, or if Tybura is a little off with the timing, a little sloppy early on. Diniz, the guy's a former Glory kickboxer. He has really good striking. I think that his fight with Carl Williams showed that his style isn't the easiest to just go in there and take him down, because he has a low center of gravity. He doesn't really overextend on his strikes. He's not super high volume. He likes to walk you down and kind of pick his counter punches well and leg kick. And I feel like Tybura, we've seen him get knocked out multiple times, and I think this is a fight that, one guy's going to dominate. If Tybura gets that takedown, he's going to finish. If he can't get the takedown, Diniz is going to knock him out. So I'm going with Janata as the underdog. I think that he just is in a better spot here to get the win. And I think that Tybura, even though he's a good wrestler, I don't know if he's just going to explode in there early and be able to take Diniz down. I don't think that Janata is going to give him an opportunity by making a big mistake to take him down. And I just think he's going to find that knockout for whatever reason. So I'm going with Diniz here, slight underdog to pick up the win via knockout. And this next fight right here, kind of a total pass for me. I don't got a lot to say about it. Short notice matchup. Roberto Romero Hernandez, I don't think he's a slouch. It's just, I don't think he has a high likelihood to win this fight. And the line's off, though. I just don't trust Onama. Onama's a guy that I like betting when he's a dog or when it's a maybe close line because he's a little chinny and I feel like he can make mistakes in certain fights, but he's obviously very good, athletic, well-rounded, and he's getting better. So I think Onama's a hard guy to bet on when he's a big favorite, but it's kind of warranted here, and he's obviously a good fighter. But Hernandez, the guy is signed to Iridium Sports, who they have a ton of guys in the UFC, and they always get these fighters in on short notice, it seems like. Trains with Team Oyama, which that's a very good camp. And you watch his fights, I mean, he is very aggressive. He attacks the body well. He's coming forward with some solid boxing. But I feel like he's kind of too one-dimensional with the boxing. I don't know how he's going to deal with calf kicks or just even the power of Onama in general. And I don't know if he's going to be able to stuff takedowns and things like that. I'm not sure. I've seen him get dropped, and he's very, you could tell he's in great shape, and he's able to get hurt, and he comes back. But against someone like Onama, maybe he's not going to be able to do that. He's going to be undersized too. So you'd think Onama's going to be able to get the job done here, stay long, knees up the middle. I think we'll be able to land. I've seen those land on Hernandez before. And if the pressure's actually really getting into Onama, then mix in some takedowns. You'll probably be able to hit him. All the experience that Onama has, I mean, he should win this one. But I do think it's kind of I don't see any value in the fight, personally. And this next fight, this is another tricky one. Jim Miller versus Damon Jackson. Both these guys are coming off losses. Jim Miller, he had that historic UFC 300 fight, but didn't go his way. Kind of got beat up by Bobby Green. He got the early knockdown, but after that, he really got bloodied up and beat down pretty bad. And Damon Jackson, he's coming back pretty fast. I mean, he just fought in August, and he kind of got thrown around and dominated by Stipe Miocic, so hopefully he's not coming back a little bit too quick. But one thing that Damon Jackson is doing to mix it up is he's moving up to 155 here, where he's usually a really big 145er. So 36 years old, maybe it is the right decision to move up. And I mean, he's obviously not facing the cream of the crop here, even though he's facing the legend in Jim Miller, 41 years old Jim Miller. So it's a good transition into 155. He's going to be probably similar sized, and obviously he's going to have the youth and things like that. But I think it's first round or bust for Miller, which is what it's been like for him in a lot of his recent years in the UFC. He's gotten some wins that have gone deeper more recently, and he's actually shown some good performances recently. But I just think with a fighter with the style of Damon Jackson, who's going to get attached to Jim Miller if he can survive minutes and push him against the fence, probably hit some takedowns, Miller's going to gas, I think, if it becomes a longer fight. And Jackson isn't a cardio machine himself, but I think he can hit the takedowns and grind it out on top. In the first round, Jackson has improved his striking. Like, he could stay long and throw these, kicks up the middle and straight punches, but still very vulnerable. And Miller's going to have an opportunity early to knock him out. If he can close that distance and find the chin or club and sub him, I think that those are Jim Miller's best path to victory. But if Miller can't find the finish, I just see the fight becoming Damon Jackson pushing him against the fence, hitting some takedowns, controlling on top, zapping Miller, and winning a decision here at 155. So we'll see how Damon Jackson kind of transitions up to this weight class. But I'm going to say he's able to avoid getting finished early and end up winning this decision. And in this next one, we got Chris Weidman trying to continue his comeback, looking to make it 2 wins in a row against Eric Anders. Both these guys, man, I mean, they haven't won 2 fights in a row in years. I mean, for Chris Weidman, you have to go all the way back to when he was undefeated to see him have a winning streak. Since the first loss of his career, he's never been able to string 2 fights in a row together. He did get that victory over Bruno Silva in his last outing. And for Eric Anders, I think it's been since like 2018 or something since he's won 2 fights in a row. Been a very inconsistent fighter, and Anders has been fighting way lesser competition, so his excuse is not really as there for Weidman, where you could say he's been fighting absolute monsters. But obviously with Weidman, we all know what it is at this point. Legend, former champ, the guy that dethroned Anderson Silva, but 5-6 knockouts later, a broken leg later, and we have a really diminished version of Chris Weidman. Having said that, he still was able to go out there, look pretty decent against Bruno Silva, and even though the fight ended with him getting an eye poke knockout, he was on his way to victory in that one regardless. Eric Anders, a guy that came into the UFC kind of more of a striker that was a knockout artist, and now more recently in his career, he's turned into more of a wrestler, grappler, a guy that likes to mix it up and dirty box and, be really like in the clinch a lot during his fights. So we'll see if that's advantageous for him. I tend to believe it isn't. Chris Weidman, southpaw, his footwork and movement is still not terrible. I mean, I still think if these guys had a kickboxing match, I would favor Chris Weidman. I mean, Anders is a big, strong guy. Maybe, obviously, he could land something big and knock him out, but Weidman is faster. He moves better on the feet. He's going to be longer in terms of the reach. He has better boxing to me. Puts the combos together a little bit more. And Anders, really slow. I mean, I think Anders really definitely relies more on having to grab you to find his openings with like short uppercuts. He's good at bringing knees up the middle. And then he's gotten a lot better with his wrestling lately, and he can control you. But with Chris Weidman, I mean, I feel like Weidman is going to win that clinch grappling battle. He'll be able to out-wrestle Eric against the cage, maybe even take Eric down. And I feel like he's going to be better in the stand-up. Cardio-wise, Weidman always comes in great shape. Anders, I could see him slowing down. And I just don't know how invested Anders is, man. I mean, I know the guy went to fight ready for a period in his career, and that's when I think he was looking good. And now he's gone back home. He has a family. You could see him doing trips in the middle of this training camp where he went to Spain and things like that. And I just think that maybe Weidman is a little bit more invested in keeping going his career a little longer. Anders, he kind of just creeped by Jamie Pickett, who was retiring in his last fight. So that wasn't a good look for me. And so I'm going to go with Weidman in this one, man. I think Chris Weidman can get this job done and probably win a decision in this fight. And closing out the prelims, we got a pretty sick fight. It should be a banger. Jonathan Martinez and Marcus McGhee. Martinez, he had a long winning streak going into his last fight. He fought the legend Jose Aldo and ended up getting beat pretty easily in that one via decision. He got hurt bad in the third round as well, but they're giving Martinez no favors here. I mean, hard fight, an unranked fighter in Marcus McGhee that's hungry, trying to break into the rankings, has no time to waste, being 34 years old, and just been looking great recently. So this is a fight where if Martinez loses, he's going to lose his ranking, and so it's a tough position for him to be in. And he's also in transition in terms of gyms too. He was with Factory X, and Factory X, obviously, they're going through transition right now. So Martinez went back to Texas, and now he owns a gym where I believe he's the head coach as well. But he does have a group of training partners, from what I've seen, to be fair, that are pretty good. But it's a little bit concerning. Hopefully he has good people helping him game plan and things like that. Marcus McGhee is with the MMA Lab, who've been in the elite gym for years. Obviously have a good staple of bantamweights in the UFC, even though we just did see Kyler Phillips have that bad performance against Rob Font. We saw Sean O'Malley lose. So he needs to kind of pick up the slack for them and, get back in the win column for these 135ers from the MMA lab in the UFC. But 3-0 for McGhee so far with 3 knockouts. And clearly he's being pushed. I mean, he hasn't really earned a fight with Martinez, who's 10-4 in the UFC. But if he wins, he's going to be able to get a matchup more in that upper tier of the division. And I think it's a great matchup from a fan perspective as well. So it's a fight that makes sense that they would put on. So you look at it from a stylistic perspective. Jonathan Martinez, I mean, the guy is an amazing striker. He has great kicks, good defense, really fast hands where he's throwing straight punches down the middle. He has that high guard, shell guard, where he does leave the body open, and we saw Aldo take advantage of that. And Martinez's chin, he gets hurt. He's been hurt in fights. He got dropped against Aldo. Or at least he got wobbled. I can't remember if he actually went down or not, but we've seen him get knocked out by Davy Grant, and even hurt in other fights as well. But when Martinez can find that rhythm, keep you at the end of his kicks, chop the legs and, invest in the body and kind of wear on you, he can open up and style on you as you kind of fatigue and get worn down as the fight goes on and just be faster and out-volume you and just clearly be the sharper stand-up guy. His grappling isn't bad either. I mean, he has good takedown defense. He can hold you up against the fence. For Marcus McGhee, he's someone that moves really well. He does a lot of switch stance, throws a lot of feints out there, and he's kind of trying to lull you, and then he explodes in with these big punch attacks, and he has big power in his hands. He can eat some kicks. I mean, we saw Bolanos land some nice kicks on Martinez, or on McGhee, but that fight has given me a little bit of confidence that McGhee can do well versus Martinez's style, because Bolanos is a really great kicker, and McGhee eventually was able to start shutting that down and getting the better of it, and he knocked out Bolanos. And if McGhee connects on Martinez, I just don't know if Martinez is going to be able to take that power. We've seen him get hurt before, like I said, and I think McGhee's one of the more powerful guys in the weight. But if McGhee can't get that finish early, or he can't really find success, and Martinez can chop away at him a little bit, it could end up being a long night and just get away from McGhee, and that's how Martinez could win this fight. I think Martinez may try to push McGhee against the fence a little bit too. I mean, McGhee's wrestling, grappling, I don't think is the greatest, and it hasn't been tested too much, and I think the UFC is kind of trying to give him that clean path up the division, having not to face a wrestler. So I kind of do think that Marcus McGhee is going to get the better of this one. I think he's going to know he can rip the body, and he's going to get Martinez to start dropping those hands, and I think he'll be able to land and either get the knockout or win a pretty comprehensive decision off damage. But this is a big step up, and I get why some people maybe would lean towards the veteran in Martinez, but I'm going to say Marcus McGhee gets the victory. And kicking off the main card, my most confident pick of the night, I think most people's most confident pick on this card, Mauricio Hufy is taking on James Llontop. And with James Llontop, I mean, the guy is, I don't know what to think of him. 0-2 in the UFC, had a really rough outing when he fought Chris Padilla, but had a decent fight against Slava Borshev. He was able to hang in there for 3 rounds and have some moments. But I feel like Slava, he's a good boxer. He has good kicks, but he's a little more chinny, a little more hittable. I think his style, less movement-based, and I feel like Hufy's going to be harder for James to land on. One thing about Llontop that is good for him is he has a long reach, and he does do a good job of keeping a long, high guard where he can block the body, block the head fairly well. Some shots up the middle do come in, but defensively he's decent, and he could take damage too, and then he's good at coming back with straight punches. But I just feel like Hufy is going to be moving too much. He's not going to be staying in front of Llontop where he can get the boxing going and find his range. He's going to be coming with a lot of weapons, And I just feel like he's going to be the far superior striker in this fight, throwing more volume. Obviously, the MMA fighting nerds have been killing it, and he's one of those guys that are kind of waving the flag that they see as potential ranked fighter in the future for them. And I see him getting this win. I mean, they're showcasing him on this main card opener for a reason. And his one loss is a knockout loss, so he was fighting a really heavy hitter. I just don't see as big of a threat from Llontop getting the knockout. And I just think Mauricio Hufi is either going to win a very easy decision or get the finish late. I do think Llontop's tough, so I see him surviving for a little while, but I just think eventually, the sniper, more than likely, I see Hufi winning this inside the distance and probably getting a knockout. And this next fight here, Karine Silva taking on Viviane Araujo. I'm going to go with the controversial pick here. I'm going to go with Viviane Araujo to get this win. And it's difficult because she hasn't been getting the best results lately. She's 37, so those things really made me kind of struggle with this decision. But I'm just not sold on Karine Silva like everyone else. I feel like people are overrating her a little bit because she does look really good against lower level competition with her athleticism, and she's aggressive and will finish people. But her last fight with Lipski, I just wasn't super impressed with her performance in that one. And Vivi, I feel like she's still looking really solid. Like, she won the first round, in my opinion, against Natalia Silva. It was a really close fight for the whole duration of the fight. Even her fight with Alexa Grasso was very close. And I feel like, Araujo has fought way stiffer competition than Karine Silva. This is a big kind of step up in competition for Silva. And on the feet, I think Araujo is the far superior striker. Silva is explosive. She can land, some power overhands or 1-2s, and she has some okay kicks and speed, but she's not the best when she's pressured, and Araujo brings that real effective pressure. She comes forward, she's powerful, she has pretty good boxing, fast hands, she'll chop the legs, and I feel like she's going to be the superior striker. And the fight's going to come down to if Silva can get the takedowns. And Silva does have a nice blast double, strong clinch takedowns also. And if she gets on top, she can control you pretty well. I think she has a lot more of a submission threat than some of these fighters that Araujo has fought. But the thing about Araujo is she can grapple as well. She can hit takedowns, pretty good takedown defense. And she can get up after being taken down as well. And Silva, we saw in her last fight with Lipski, she wasn't as dominant against someone that was just slightly better as a grappler than who she'd been previously been fighting. And Lipski isn't like a super high-level grappler. Third round, Silva was tired. I thought that Lipski actually won that round. So I just believe that Araujo is going to come in good shape. She's going to be motivated for this one. Once again, it's in New York, Madison Square Garden. Great opportunity. And I think she's going to be able to stuff some of these takedowns, pressure Silva, kind of get Silva tired by making it a tougher fight than Silva believes it's going to be. And I think she's going to be able to get the win, show that veteran savvy. Kind of similar to Rob Font versus Kyler Phillips type of upset here. So I'm going to go with Vivi Araujo in this fight. And this next fight, this is I don't know what to think about this one. I'm getting a weird vibe on this fight, but, clear setup fight for Bo Nickal, who is maybe the biggest blue chip prospect in UFC history. He's definitely up there. I mean, the guy is 6-0, but people have been talking about him being a future champ since he was 1-0, 2-0 in MMA, and he's been able to pass the test in all of his fights. He hasn't really fought anybody. I mean, you beat Cody Brunage, you beat Jamie Pickett, got, that win over Val Woodburn, the short notice fighter. So, I mean, not really the best victories, whereas you see Paul Craig beating multiple UFC champions, title challengers, things like that. But Paul Craig's been looking horrible recently, man. I mean, the guy on the feet, it's like you've been fighting for so many years, man, and all you could do is just like throw these stupid kicks and slow hands. I mean, I feel like his striking never evolved whatsoever. And obviously, if this fight goes to the ground, it's going to be interesting. I mean, if Paul Craig gets taken down, he has to spaz out and go for a lot of submissions, man, be very aggressive, which he always does, because if he could just, get something, I feel like early on, I mean, maybe he could snatch up something on Bo Nickal. I mean, we really haven't seen Bo Nickal face someone with this much of a threat on the ground. But I don't know. I mean, going out there and picking Paul Craig to get a submission, I think is very, very bold, and I'm not going to do it. I think Bo Nickal is going to keep it standing and probably get the knockout here. Paul Craig's striking is just not good, and Bo Nickal's striking is lower level as well. So that's why it could be a sloppy striking fight, but I feel like at minimum Bo Nickal does have good powerful hands, and if he can connect on Craig, I think he could probably put him down. So I got Bo Nickal here. I think it's pretty obvious everyone's probably going to be going with Bo Nickal, but I don't know. I mean, this is a weird fight. It's like huge step up for Bo Nickal, but an easy tailor-made matchup. If he fights smart, and Paul Craig's definitely on his way out, so it's like you got to pick Bo Nickal, but the line is insane, and Paul Craig's ability to get these upset over other guys kind of makes you want to go out on a limb and go with him, but I think it's, not very smart, and I think Bo Nickal will win here. And in this next one, we got two grizzled veterans. We got former champ Charles Oliveira rematching Michael Chandler, where their first fight was a undisputed title fight. Michael Chandler was a few punches away from earning the belt, but Charles Oliveira was able to survive that late first round flurry from Chandler, go out there, get the second round knockout. But since then, man, a lot of shit has happened. I mean, Oliveira went on a great run after that, got a couple more huge wins, but he's lost 2 of his last 3 fights. And Michael Chandler, his last fight was the loss to Dustin Poirier, and then he had the long saga with Conor McGregor where they were supposed to fight multiple times. They filmed The Ultimate Fighter, and then he kind of got left in the dust, man, left in the wind, just hanging around. So ended up having to book a different fight, and you can't ask for much bigger. I mean, he got a former champion, an opportunity to avenge a loss in Madison Square Garden, co-main event on a pay-per-view. So huge spot for Chandler nonetheless, and a hell of a fight. And I was a little more confident, honestly, I will say, in Do Bronx the first time these two guys met up than this time, but I still like Do Bronx as far as a prediction. I feel like he is on the feet the better overall striker. He's obviously very hittable, so that gives Chandler that chance to explode on him. But ultimately, I think Charles just has to be aggressive and wane into the fire like he does against these other guys, because when you close the space on these guys, you make it harder for Chandler to throw all these crazy kicks that he throws and use these switch stance blitz attacks, and you smother a lot of the danger from Chandler, and that's where you can get your elbows going, your knees going. You could maybe hit a takedown. We saw Do Bronx get in deep and hit that double leg on Chandler in his last fight. And obviously you're going to have to potentially get clipped and take some damage to implement that game plan. But if you could do it and get on the inside and do the work that you need to do, then you can get a diminished Chandler if the fight continues, or get your finish. And Oliveira, I feel like he hasn't been looking as good recently. I don't think his confidence is the same as where it was before, but having fought a guy that he's already beaten, that I think he believes that he has an edge over, I think that's going to give him a little bit more confidence to be aggressive with the submission game, to be aggressive with his pressure and striking on the feet. And I feel like if these guys grapple, man, I mean, yes, Chandler had some success in the first fight. He was able to get out of the guillotine. He was able to, he attacked guillotine, He was able to get out of the back mount position. He had some good ground and pounds. And we've seen Charles kind of more recently stay in his guard and just kind of except being on his back and trying to avoid taking damage. But I think he needs to go back to being that aggressive submission hunter and trying to really throw up a lot of stuff on Chandler if he does end up on his back, or even if he gets on top, try to jump on submissions and things like that and be aggressive. And ultimately, I just think that Oliveira is going to be able to find the submission in this one. This knockout threat is there once again as well, but I'm thinking submission more in this fight. Chandler, 36 years old, long layoff, returning. I think it's always going to be a tough matchup for him, and I think Bronx knows what he has to do to get the win. If Chandler wins, it is going to be a knockout, I believe, early. So if you like Chandler, go with the unders, go with the Chandler KO. But I think Charles Bronx is going to win this one. This is 5 rounds too, so I don't think Chandler can use his wrestling. Maybe if it was 3 rounds, maybe 2 rounds, he could smother Bronx or something. But I just can't see him doing it for 5 rounds, honestly. And yeah, I'm going to Bronx. Finish here, I'll say this time instead of a second round knockout, it's a second round submission. And finally, the showdown between the greatest MMA fighter of all time and the greatest UFC heavyweight of all time is going to get settled. This fight has been in the making for well over a year. They were booked to fight November of last year, and Jones had to pull out due to that pec injury. And, a lot of fans wanted to move on, wanted to see Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall, especially because it's kind of holding up the undisputed title in the division. But they had the fight booked, and I think Jones and Stipe kind of earned the right to get this fight. And in 10, 20, 30 years, everyone's going to look back and see how monumental a fight this was. So I think it's not the worst choice to keep it intact. And Jones, he's only fought once since February of 2020, so I think he kind of deserves to get back into it with a guy that's in a similar trajectory to him. Stipe, he hasn't been seen since March of 2021, and unlike Jon Jones, who came back, made quick work of Ciryl Gane, and is the undisputed champion still with the momentum of never being beaten, Stipe suffered a brutal knockout loss his last time out. 42 years old now, Stipe is, and hasn't fought in almost 4 years. No one has given him much of a chance at all, and I do think people are kind of amplifying all the negatives Stipe has entering this fight and not speaking about Jones's at all. Stipe has the layout to deal with, but Jones himself has only fought 2 minutes and 4 seconds in the last 4.5 years. He also has 2 minutes and 4 seconds of experience as a heavyweight, and although he ran through Ciryl, many were saying that he lost to Dominic Reyes, and even though he's significantly younger than Stipe at 37, he isn't a spring chicken either, and he also has this injury to deal with. So I personally think Stipe is being a little discounted here, but you look at this from a stylistic perspective, Stipe is not an easy fight for anybody. He's definitely old. He's coming off a horrible knockout loss, so maybe he'll look completely washed, but I'm going to say that Stipe shows up for this fight. And Stipe, one thing about him is he has an incredible chin. He has been knocked out a couple of times, but in a lot of his victories, he eats a lot of big shots in order to get the W. I kind of anticipate he's going to look to pressure Jones here and show him no respect. Jon Jones is dangerous everywhere, but I think his biggest threat for Stipe is more when they're at distance, at least to get the knockout. That's where Jones can use his big knees. He could try to find the head kick. And I don't know if Jones has the power to hurt Stipe with his hands. Miocic is fast, closing the distance. He throws nice punches and bunches, and the right hand is just really good. Straight right, overhand right, right uppercut. He finds the chin well, and nice jabs is also. So I think that his boxing is solid. When Jon Jones does that hand fighting that he likes to do, just like Stipe did against DC, he needs to rip the body and make him pay for that. Even in his last fight with Ngannou, Stipe got dropped, but he did land kind of a big, heavy counter right hand that actually wobbled Francis a little bit. And when Stipe is hurt and you're swarming on him, he is dangerous. But obviously, he got baptized in that fight by Ngannou, knocked out horribly. And we're going to have to see how his chin reacts to that. But Stipe, it's a guy that's never lost 2 fights in a row. Very prideful guy. You know that he's coming into this matchup with zero... how do I put this? Some people were saying that Ciryl Gane was overwhelmed by the moment. That's not going to happen with Stipe. I mean, this guy's running into burning buildings. I don't think he's going to be too worried about going in there with Jon Jones in terms of having the confidence in himself to win. He's going to have that. And Stipe, in my opinion, I think his uppercuts are going to be what is going to be his money punch. If he does hurt Jon Jones or something happens where there's a big moment for Stipe, I think it's going to be with the uppercut. Uppercuts are shots that have been successful versus Jones for other fighters. So if I was Stipe, I would really look for body shots, uppercuts, maybe try to clinch Jon Jones and test how strong he is, see how good his cardio is with that extra weight on him, and just see how, good he's came back from that injury as well. But he's going to have to stay very tight in that clinch if that's his game plan, because the knees, the elbows are going to be coming from Jon. And we'll see if Stipe is able to kind of implement that game plan without taking the brunt of the damage. But one thing about Miocic is he isn't going to be an easy takedown like Ciryl Gane. Even if Jones does get a takedown, I think Stipe can get back up. He has to be very careful of exposing the neck, because against other guys at heavyweight, maybe that guillotine threat or the front choke threat isn't really there. But with Jon Jones, you do have to be very wary of that. And Stipe, though, if you look at it, he's never been taken down more than one time in a UFC fight. No one has been able to submit him or really do much damage to him on the ground. And Stipe has a nice single, good body lock. I don't really think he's going to be able to take Jon Jones down. I mean, Jones has 95% takedown defense, but Miocic maybe could pose a little bit more problems in the wrestling grappling than people are thinking. And cardio-wise, for a heavyweight, Miocic has really excellent cardio. He will get a little tired, but he's good at getting second, third wins, and he just has that heart of a champion. But we don't really know if his cardio is going to be the same now at this older age. But you're looking at Jon Jones. I mean, this guy, we all know how good he is. One of the best ever, if not the best ever. Extremely long. He's still going to have a 4.5-inch reach advantage, even though Stipe is a little bit taller than him. And super diverse with his weapons. He's attacking all parts of the body, the legs, the stomach, the head. He's throwing a diverse array of weapons. I think obviously in this one he's going to be looking to throw those stomp kicks to the knees. He's going to be throwing a lot of front kicks to the body. I think that he's going to be trying to hand fight like DC did and be a little bit more cagey with it and try to land, knees, elbows, maybe a little bit more impactful shots, test that chin of Stipe. And maybe Jones will have a little bit more punch power at the higher weight. Maybe he'll sit down and land some big power shots, but obviously we've never really seen him do that. But one thing with Jones is, man, if he can back up Stipe and get those hands connected, he's going to take him down. I mean, the guy, if he can get his hands connected against the cage on anyone, he's usually taking them down with pretty much ease. So it's hard to just pick Stipe, because I just feel like Jones is going to be able to control the distance with his array of attacks, probably have a big speed advantage, and just land way more on Stipe. Stipe, if he gets too over-aggressive, he's going to have to worry about being taken down, and he doesn't want to be on his back with Jon Jones. Jon Jones on top is one of the best ever. Those elbows, great submission game. So I just feel like the line is kind of a little wild. I mean, minus 650 for Jones, I think that's way too wide. We just saw Jon Jones or Ciryl. He was almost a pick'em. So I think that's a big overreaction to Stipe's last fight and just the long layoff for Stipe. Stipe has more of a chance than that, but Jones is probably going to win this one. I mean, unless he just isn't the same fighter at heavyweight, which we really haven't seen. I mean, all we saw was him take down Ciryl and submit him in 2 minutes with relative ease. If Stipe could put up some resistance, maybe Jones isn't in as good a shape at heavyweight and slows down Major, or maybe the chin isn't as good at heavyweight. We don't really know some of these questions. They still need to be answered. But I think he's going to be able to beat Stipe at this point in Stipe's career, and just because of the guy that he is, man, he's the best ever. So I see this going over 2.5 rounds, though, and could even go the distance, I feel like, at plus 350. I don't think that's the worst bet. Jon Jones has gotten, a lot of finishes, but he's gotten to a lot of decisions as well. And Stipe is a hard guy to finish. He's never been submitted. He's hard to knock out. I think he's going to come in motivated. So the overs, I kind of like that. And but I'm going to say Jon Jones wins this one. Either maybe a ground and pound finish or a decision win. So I kind of like the overs, and I like Jon Jones in this fight. So there you have it, guys. It's the full card predictions and breakdown video for UFC 309. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you got a bet or two out of this video. So hit the like button down below. Put a comment. I want to hear your opinions. Do you agree with my picks? Do you disagree? Which picks are you most confident? What are you betting on? What are your parlays that you're giving out? Want to hear all that from you guys. So put it down in the comments below. And besides that, patreon.com/MMAPredictionGuru. That's the place to go for all breakdowns and predictions for other promotions, for bets that I'm giving out. And yeah, man, you keep the channel going over there at Patreon. Appreciate all you guys over there that are patrons. And besides that, for my most confident pick on this card, I'm going to go with Mauricio Helfie. And for parlay of the week, I'm actually going to just give you guys a play of the week for this one. And I'll go with Diniz. I think he's a good play as an underdog, so I'll give you guys him as the play of the week. So thanks for watching, guys. I'll be back soon with another breakdown and prediction video. Appreciate everyone for sticking around and supporting the channel. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.